cannabis sativa, not just cannabis. And that little detail, well, it makes all the difference.
You're telling me it's like thinking you're just ordering a coffee, but then you walk into a place with like a million options on the menu.
Right. Like suddenly you realize there's a whole world of roasts and origins, and you're just standing there like, I just wanted a cup of joe.
Exactly. And just like with coffee, knowing the distinctions in cannabis, it can totally change your experience. What you've stumbled upon here is the whole world of how scientists get specific when they're talking about plants. We're talking binomial nomenclature.
Nomenclature. Okay, that sounds a tad intimidating, not gonna lie.
I promise it's way simpler than it sounds. Think of it like how we use first and last names to tell people apart, right? John Smith, Jane Doe, you know the drill. It's the same idea with plants. So cannabis is kind of like the general family name, that's the genus. And then sativa, that's like the more specific last name, the species.
So instead of just saying Smith, I'm saying John Smith to be super precise.
Exactly, you got it. And we need that level of precision because cannabis on its own, it's way too broad. It'd be like walking into a restaurant and just asking for food.
Haha, good luck with that order.
Right, you need to know what you're getting into. Salad, steak, mystery meat special. Each cannabis species has these like unique qualities that determine everything, how it grows, how it makes you feel. It's a big deal.
Okay, that makes total sense. So if sativa is our buddy John Smith, are there other cannabis siblings out there causing, maybe a little mischief in the family tree?
Oh, you better believe it. We've got Cannabis indica and Cannabis ruderalis, each one bringing something totally unique to the table. It's like finding out your favorite band has a whole discography you've never even heard of.
Now, this is my kind of deep dive. Okay, so I got to ask, because I've always heard people associate sativa with feeling energized and indica with feeling relaxed. Is there any truth to that, or is that like totally bogus?
It's definitely a classic stereotype, and like most stereotypes, it's a bit of an oversimplification. We'll get into why that is a bit later when we talk about chemotypes. But generally speaking, cannabis sativa plants, they tend to be taller, take a bit longer to grow, and yeah, historically, they've been linked to more uplifting effects.
So picture like a lanky teenager, just full of energy bouncing off the walls. Got it. What about cannabis indica? What's their deal?
Indica is often associated with being shorter and bushier, growing a bit faster, and a lot of folks link them to those like relaxing, chill vibes. Think of it like that reliable friend who's always down to just hang out.
Okay, starting to see the family resemblance here.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, I shouldn't walk into a dispensary expecting every sativa to turn me into a ball of energy, right? There's more to it.
Way more to it. And this is where things get really interesting because that word you hear everywhere, strain, it's not actually the right term. We need to start talking about cultivars.
Wait, hold on. Strain is wrong. I feel like I just failed Cannabis 101. Strain is like, it's everywhere. How is that not the right word?
Yeah, it's super common, but strain, it's technically used for bacteria and viruses, like when they talk about different strains of the flu.
Okay, so what are we supposed to use? It's just semantics, right? What's the difference?
Not exactly, because with plants, the term we want to use is cultivar. It's kind of a mouthful, but it basically means cultivated variety. And that highlights the fact that humans have, stepped in and intentionally bred for specific traits.
So it's like we're talking about how we've bred dogs for certain looks, temperaments, like some people want a teacup poodle and some people want a Great Dane.
Exactly. You're spot on. And just like dog breeders, those cultivators, they're creating cannabis varieties with specific goals in mind. Maybe it's how fast it grows, maybe it's a really high THC content, or maybe even resistance to pests.
Wow, so it's like choose your own adventure, but for plants. So I got two plants that are both called Blue Dream, but one grower was focused on boosting the CBD, while the other one wanted a super pungent, terpene-rich aroma. And they're both still technically Blue Dream.
And then now you're getting it. And that's exactly why you can find so much variety, even within those familiar names you see at the dispensary. But hold on, because this is where it gets really interesting. All those effects you mentioned, that energy, the relaxation, the whole shebang, it all boils down to a plant's chemotype.
Okay, another archetype. You're throwing a lot of science at me today. What even is a chemotype?
Basically, it's like the plant's chemical fingerprint. It's the unique blend of compounds it contains, things like THC, CBD, terpenes, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And just like your fingerprints, a cannabis plant's chemotype, it sets it apart from all the others.
So even if two plants share the same name, like they're the same cultivar, their chemical makeup could be totally different.
You got it. And here's why it matters. Those variations in chemotype, that's what determines the specific effects you feel when you consume it. It's kind of like wine, right? You can have a Pinot Noir grape, but the final wine, that can taste totally different depending on where it was grown, the climate, even like the winemaker's choices. It's pretty amazing.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. Okay, so it sounds like I shouldn't just be looking at the name. I should be asking about the chemotype.
Bingo. Asking about the chemotype, that's your ticket to understanding why one blue dream might have you feeling super energized and another one might have you glued to the couch. But wait, there's one more piece to this puzzle. We got to talk about the difference between phenotype and genotype.
All right, this is a lot of tights for one deep dive. You can make me pull out my old science notebooks? Break it down for me. What's the difference between phenotype and genotype? Okay, phenotype, genotype. It's like all of a sudden we're back in high school biology class.
Right. But trust me, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Think of it this way. Genotype is like a plant's DNA blueprint. It's all the potential, everything it could be. But just like with blueprints, the final building, it can look totally different depending on the builder, the materials, even the weather.
So two plants, same DNA, totally different outcomes depending on the environment they're grown in.
Exactly. And that final result, that physical expression of a plant's genes, that's its phenotype. So you could have two cannabis plants, same DNA, but they end up looking and feeling totally different. Like imagine one OG Kush living it up in California, soaking up all that sunshine, growing tall and lanky, while it's like genetically identical twin stuck inside under some LED lights, ends up all short, bushy, and totally laid back.
Okay, so let's say I find this amazing batch of purple haze, and I am blown away, right? Best experience ever. But the next time I go back to the dispensary, ask for the same thing. It's just not the same. Could that be because of phenotype?
It's definitely possible. Even small changes in the growing environment, it can really shift a plant's phenotype. Like maybe the grower tweaked their lighting setup a bit, or maybe the soil composition changed slightly. There are so many factors.
This is blowing my mind. I always thought finding your go-to strain was like the holy grail, but it sounds like there's so much more to it than that.
100%. It's all about being an informed cannabis consumer. Now you're in the know. Look beyond the name. Ask about the chemotype, those dominant compounds. Find out if the grower had any specific goals in mind when they were breeding that cultivar. And don't be shy. Ask about how it was grown, too. Indoor, outdoor, greenhouse. All these little details, they paint a much richer picture of what you're about to experience.
It's like becoming a cannabis detective. So the next time I'm at the dispensary, instead of just saying, give me that sour diesel, I should be asking all these questions.
Exactly. And honestly, even the most experienced growers and bud tenders, they love it when people ask those kinds of questions. It shows you're really engaged, that you're ready to dive in and appreciate all the nuances of this incredible plant.
This deep dive has been a total game changer. I feel like I need to go on a cannabis quest now and put all this knowledge to good use.
Yes, go out there and explore. And hey, remember, even when you think you've got it all figured out, cannabis will always find a way to surprise you.
That's what I love about it. Thanks so much for clearing the haze and shedding some light on all this. I feel like a true cannabis connoisseur now. Until next time. Happy exploring, everyone.